Breaking: Trump's trip interrupted by horrible news from home. While President Trump continues his mission for peace overseas, he is also fighting to maintain staples of his administration at home. On Thursday, a Richmond, Virginia-based federal appeals court refused to reinstate President Trump's travel ban on nationals from 6 majority Muslim countries. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals was not shy about sharing its opinion after the 10-3 negative ruling, stating that Trump's executive order speaks with vague words of national security, but in context drips with religious intolerance, animus, and discrimination.
And thanks, Tucker. And this is a Fox News alert. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, has predictably ruled against the Trump administration by upholding the suspension of the president's temporary travel ban. Also tonight, we have an important opening monologue about congressional Republicans and how they need to roll up their sleeves and start to go to work and fulfill President Trump's promises to you, the American people. That's coming up. But first, President Trump is reacting to tonight's ruling by tweeting out, quote, in big letters, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake." Now, President Trump also said this tonight.
The security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court. But it's a decision that we'll win, in my opinion, very easily.
And are you?
And by the way, we won that decision in Boston.
And joining us now with reaction from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, and the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, is with us. Jay, we have both been predicting for days now the Ninth Circuit, the most liberal Court of Appeals, the most overturned court in the country. It would act this way. We both felt that the government, the DOJ, did not argue it as effectively as you or I would have argued it. Of course, Attorney General Sessions was not in play in this, but he would be going forward. What's your reaction?
Yeah. So now we have an Attorney General of the United States that has a couple of decisions to make. Number one, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, I think, is incorrect as a matter of law, clearly. In fact, they say in their opinion that the TRO may in fact have been overbroad. In other words, striking down the entire executive order may have been overbroad, but it's not their job to fix it, when actually that's exactly the job of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, if the TRO is too broad, is to strike those portions that are overbroad. And the government did ask for that in the argument as a fallback position, so it could have been done. They did not do it. That's number one. Number two, they rest the case on two premises. Number one, that the standing, the state's ability to bring the litigation in the first place, rests on the fact that students and university faculty may be impacted by this, and they go into the whole discussion about the government not putting forward evidence of harm. The reality is the Somali student at Ohio State University that committed those acts was from Somalia, one of the 7 countries of concern that were listed in the executive order. So they were wrong as a matter of fact. The next thing that's important here is they disregard the White House directive explaining the executive order, which exempted from its effect those with green cards or valid visas for entry. And they said, we have no basis upon which we can accept the executive action taken by the White House counsel in the directive. That really doesn't impact this. Now, there's 2 ways to fix that. You know what the president could do, Sean, tonight? Issue a new executive order, put in those exemptions, and put it in place tomorrow, and make the states relitigate this at the Ninth Circuit. Would they lose? Yes, but it clears up any confusion, and up to the Supreme Court you go, where you win 8-0.
You know, Tom, let's talk about the president, and he has the constitutional, statutory ability to do what he did here. And is this a case where you believe the left went judge shopping by going to Seattle, knowing that any appeal would go to the Ninth Circuit, the most liberal court in the country, appeals court in the country, for the very purpose of undermining the agenda? In other words, is there a partnership among judicial activists and those liberal activists that want to stop Trump's agenda?
Well, to be clear, the leftist infrastructure allows them to go judge shopping all at once across the country. This is only one of many legal challenges. Obviously, they have the best chance in a sympathetic, ideologically sympathetic district out like in the Ninth Circuit. But I think the most troubling aspect to this political decision, Sean, is the attack on the president's status as commander-in-chief. He and the administration has said there is a national security interest here in allowing this executive order to go forward. and this court has second-guessed that. And that is a power they don't have a right under the Constitution, and the president is well within his rights to criticize the courts who act like politicians. No one hired these courts to be commander-in-chief, and if they want to downplay the threat of terrorism based on their own predilections, their own biases, that's not something they're supposed to do. They've got to defer to the president on this national security matter. The fact they didn't is egregious.
Constitutionally of a president is to be the commander-in-chief.
Yes.
And we have spent a lot of time on this program, Jay Sekulow going over the law, 8 U.S.C. 1182, by which they predicated this executive action. And it couldn't be any more
Which they
clear.
ignore, by the way, in this opinion, really.
They totally
completely
ignore.
Let me say something else.
Well, let me
the
put it
Ninth
up on the
Circuit
screen.
and the Court of Appeals
Hang
are the
on
ones
one
that
second,
created
Jay.
the constitutional crisis. They created the
Let me read it for
constitutional
our
crisis.
audience if I can. When the
Yeah.
president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may by proclamation and for such period as he shall deem necessary suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants, non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem appropriate. This is not
Right.
The law could not be clear. It's not for a judge to make this decision. They do not have the constitutional
fundamental
authority
problem
to do
here.
this.
Yeah, the fundamental problem here is the district court judge and now the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, again, not shockingly, has created their own constitutional crisis. A showdown between the President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief under Article 2 of the Constitution and the statutory authority you just read, and the Ninth Circuit exercising their judgment instead of the President's. That's not the way the government is structured.
And the refugee program is a disaster. It's like playing Russian roulette. We are not vetting the refugees in any serious sense. We rely on the United Nations to do the core
Which is a
vetting,
joke.
and then we run off of their files to figure out whether these people should be here or not. But this is a dangerous game the court is playing. I guarantee you the terrorists in those affected countries are going to flood the refugee zone to try to get in here before any courts rule in Trump's favor.
Absolutely. And, terrorists may be evil, but they're not stupid. And I've said fundamentally what the whole issue comes down to here, Jay, is the inconvenience of a few non-American citizens versus the willingness to gamble with the lives of the American people. And what the judges have decided here, and Democrats have decided, they're willing to gamble.
Yeah, well, but the Ninth Circuit has taken upon itself to decide that they are now going to override the President of the United States when the Constitution and the statute are clear. And you've read it multiple times, but there is no question about the statutory authority here. But let me add one other thing, and I think this is the fundamental aspect of this. This constitutional crisis has been established not by the administration, but rather by the district court and the Court of Appeals. But the president can moot that whole issue out tonight by issuing a new executive order, meeting this burden, and then let them fight it out again. And that may be one way to resolve this. I trust the Attorney General's recommendation and advice on this, no matter which way it goes.
Yeah, and Tom, let's look at the practical potential consequences here. Because what they are is if, God forbid, somebody comes into this country from one of these 7 countries where we know they harbor terrorists, where terrorist training takes place, and even President Obama, the list actually came from him and his administration. If, God forbid, an American is killed, I am saying what needs to be said here. They will have blood on their hands. They will be responsible because they are not putting as their top priority the safety and security of the American people. Do you agree with that?
I agree, and you don't have to believe President Trump on this. Believe the appointees of President Obama, who over the last 2 years have repeatedly warned that the refugee program is susceptible to terrorist manipulation. They've warned it specifically about the Syrian program. They've worried people have already slipped in under the refugee program. So this is serious. And by the way, your listeners and viewers may not know this. Once you're a refugee here in the United States, you're required to seek permanent residency. This is a pathway to citizenship. This isn't a temporary refuge. If you're here, you're here forever, practically speaking. And this is something that we have no way of protecting the American people from in terms of the terrorist threat, because the courts right now have allowed or stopping the president from ascertaining whether someone is a terrorist threat from places like Syria, Yemen, and the worst of the worst.
All right, guys,
Because these courts are in denial. of what's really going on in the world right now. The Ninth Circuit's in
I agree.
denial. So is the district court judge. They live in a world they wish it was, not the world that it actually is.
The nation's
I would actually say it a different way. I think it's a pre-9/11 mindset. That's how dangerous this
It
is.
is.
Guys, stay right there. We'll have more with Jay Sekulow after the break. Also, Michelle Malcolm will join us, weigh in on tonight's appeals court ruling. Plus, our opening monologue, a little delayed, that you do not want to miss tonight on how Republicans in Congress need to take President Trump's lead and start working much harder for you, the American people. And also, later tonight, a video Senator Elizabeth Warren does not want you to see. It sheds her false claims about the now Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and a protest breaks out in Phoenix over the deportation of a convicted criminal illegal alien. That and more on this busy news night tonight on Hannity.
Now you know why they don't like Hannity, and they're going against Hannity, because he's the only one that brings to light all these things that affect the American people. But the dumb liberals, they're just too brainwashed in order to see that there is a threat to this country. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching.